Good evening and welcome to the Glendale Transportation and Parking Commission meeting of Monday, February 23. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Kirkjian?
Here.
Commissioner Yakubian?
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Here.
Commissioner Bartrasov?
Here.
Chairperson Sahakian?
Here. Next item, please.
Item 1B is flag salute. Chairperson Sahakian.
Thank you. Please rise. Recite with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of
America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 2 is posting of the agenda. The agenda for the Monday, February 23rd, 2015, regular meeting of the Glendale Transportation and Parking Commission was posted by Friday, February 20th, 2015, before 5:30 p.m. on the bulletin board outside of City Hall.
Thank you. Item number 3.
Approval of minutes at 3A are the August 25th, 2014 regular meeting minutes, and at 3B is the December 2nd, 2014 special meeting minutes.
Okay, for the first set of minutes, August 25th, any comments, commissioners?
No.
Okay, can I get a motion?
So move.
Second. Thank you. Approved as written. Minutes for December 2nd special meeting. Any comments? Yeah, I do have a comment on the second set of minutes under number 6, where it was stated that the meetings will be every 2 months. We also discussed and stated that if there's a need for an emergency meeting, then we can do that. So if we can please add that to the minutes. Thank you. And with that modification, can I get a motion to approve? Second. Thank you. Approved as amended. Next item, please.
Item 4 is oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. The commission may question the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision.
Thank you. I have only one card, and this card is for the next item, item number 5. Is there anybody that's here for oral communication on any subject? What you need to do, you need to fill out one of these cards.
That's for the following.
This is regarding the speed hump, correct? Yes, that's the next item. Okay. So I'm going to close oral communications, and we're going to move to the next item.
Item 5, action item. At 5A is a report regarding the installation of speed humps on Elk Avenue between Columbus Avenue and Central Avenue. At 5A1 is a motion approving the installation of 2 speed humps on Elk Avenue between Columbus Avenue and Central Avenue.
Do we have a presentation?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Wayne Cole. I'm the Principal Traffic Engineer for the City of Glendale. Mr. Rubik Alanian, the Director of Public Works, is currently out of the state for a workshop, so I'll be attending the meeting on his behalf. Our first item, actually, next slide, please, is the proposal to install speed humps on the, on Elk Avenue between Columbus and Central Avenue. Next item, next slide, please. This is a basically is a location map of the 300 block of Elk that's between Columbus and Central Avenue. For reference, Colorado is here, Central and San Fernando Road, and this is the location we'll be talking about. Next slide, please. This is a shot of Elk Avenue looking east from towards Central Avenue from Columbus. Next slide. And this is the other end of that block looking west from Central to Columbus. Next slide. And this is the basically middle of the block. As you can see, Elk is a residential street. It's 30 feet curb to curb with parking on both sides. And thank you. So what happened is, so a little bit background about this item is staff received a request from residents on Elk Avenue for traffic calming. The major concern, of course, is speeding vehicles. And what we did is we conduct an engineering analysis based on the city's neighborhood traffic calming program. We conduct 24-hour traffic volume counts, speed surveys, and also field investigation. And I'm going to present the results of our findings in the next table, which is a little small to read, actually. But I'm going to have it right here. So what happened is we, in addition to the results of our findings, we also list the city's guidelines for installing speed humps in this situation. And the first guideline is travel lane, and it has to have one travel lane in each direction. And ELK basically satisfied that criteria. We satisfied that conditions, and it's only have one lane in each direction. And the second one has to be a residential street, and the street must be located in a residential district, and it is residential. We basically mostly have single-family residential and some apartments in there. A few office near the central side, still commercial and office near the central side, but for the most part, it is a residential street. Street classification, it has to be either a local street, a neighborhood community, or community collector. And ELK classified as a local street, and we also satisfy that condition. The post speed limit is 25 miles per hour. It is 25 miles per hour. And the 85th percentile speed, this is the speed at or below which 85% of the drivers are driving. And the requirement has to be 30 or above, 30 miles per hour and above. And we are actually right at 30. The 85% of speed is right at 30. The next one will be the daily traffic volume. The range for the qualification of speed humps is 1,000 to 10,000 average daily traffic, vehicles average daily traffic. And the counts we obtained on ELK is about 1,186, so it's above 1,000. And whether it is a truck or transit route, and if it is a truck or transit route, or if it is emergency vehicle response route, we do not install speed humps. And ELK is not any of those. Actually, ELK is basically a local street, local residential street, and it's not a truck route. It's not an emergency response route. The width of the street, the maximum width of the street is 40 feet for installation of speed humps. And ELK is actually 30 feet only from curb to curb. And it also satisfied that condition. And we also want a petition, support by petition, and the request to basically generate a petition and request for a minimum. We need 75% of the residents agreeing to the installation of speed humps. And in this case, we have 79%. Actually, it's 76 out of 96 signatures we obtained. So we also satisfied that requirement. This is a diagram basically showing the block of Elk Avenue, and then the two proposed locations, we have the speed humps. Basically, we propose to have speed humps installed at two locations, basically evenly distributed on that block. Distance is about 300 feet each, so that we can effectively control speed in this area. We also show all the development in this area. Altogether, there are 26 addresses with 96 signatures. Actually, 96 potential signatures, and we got 76 out of 96. That's the reason is because we have apartment buildings in there with multi-dwelling units, apartment building, especially in a few areas like number 5, number 7, and also a few apartment buildings down here. So it is a recommendation of staff that Elk Avenue satisfy the requirement criteria for installation of speed humps, and we recommend that 2 speed humps to be installed on Elk Avenue.
Thank you for the presentation. Just one clarification. As far as emergency response routes, We don't install any, or we consider installing lumps on the emergency response routes?
In the past, the city has installed speed lumps. They
Right.
have not been very successful.
Okay.
The reason is a lot of drivers think that the depression in the lumps are thinking for them, and so
Yeah.
they try to drive in the middle of the roadway and try to go through them, and we create actually more problems.
So the city policy is that now if it's a disaster route or an emergency response route, we don't do speed humps or lumps.
That is correct.
Okay. That's good to know. Any questions, commissioners, to staff?
I have a question, please.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Thank you. When you say 96, is that property owners or 96 buildings, or when you had to have a certain percentage, but I think you said there were 96 and then you got 76 signatures or something?
Right, that's correct.
What's the base? Is it the property owner, or is it a resident of a single-family home, or?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Gonzalez, the 96, and actually the total number of units in that stretch, and for example, if you have apartment buildings, 20-unit apartment buildings, there will be 20 potential signatures. And our staff actually went and marked down all the addresses and all the unit numbers for the development, and we end up with 76 out of the 96.
So
signatures.
So that means there are 96 residents on that block?
There are 90, yes, that is correct. And it could be, in this situation, it may be, a few of them may be businesses as well, and also office building.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one card, and at this time, I'll call on Mr. Chris Askin. Please come to the podium.
Thank you. I had no idea you had such an extensive assessment of the whole thing ahead of time. My first question was going to be, who asked for this? We never got a petition. We never heard anything about it. So we're not anything. We live right there, right where one of those speed bumps is going to be, or where it's proposed. And we never heard anything about it. So my concerns are several. First of all, I think the pictures were misleading, the ones that you took. They're obviously accurate, but you took it at one end of the street when the first block there were no cars. 90% of the time or more, there's cars on both sides all the way down. We have a very hard time getting out of our driveway. We've been honked at several times, almost hit a couple times because cars park so close that you can barely get around. Every time we go up the street, without exception, we have a very small car, a Volkswagen Golf. And every time we go up or down that street, we have to pull over, or the other car has to pull over to get by. I can't imagine people speeding on that street. We're up and down it all the time. So between Columbus and Elk, so I have never seen speeding. The red brick building right next to where we live is a 3-story apartment building. There is no parking. There never has. It's what?
Please don't address him directly. If you want to speak, fill out a card, and you'll get a chance to come up and speak. Well, you have the chance to come up to the podium and speak. Please fill out a card. Let him speak.
Yeah. There is the red brick building. It's 3 stories of apartments. It's not a very big one, not compared to what's being built now. But there is no parking. It was grandfathered in because that was built years and years ago, so they don't have to have parking. So all those people in those apartments have to park on the streets. And there are other apartments too. So what I'm getting at is there's so much parking on that street in both directions. I had actually wanted to make a proposal that they widen Elk Street. There's really no way to do it because of the property on both sides, but they'd make more space. But I guess my main thing is that with the conditions the way they are, I think it's totally unnecessary. Speed bumps, I am totally supportive of them where they are needed, but I just, I don't see a need in this particular place. And if you have to put up speed bumps and keep going over them, and since we live on that street, we're up and down it all the time, it's very bothersome to have to slow down for the speed bump. You can't go that fast in the first place. It's not a very long section that you're talking about. So I am requesting that this not be passed and not be carried out because it's I think it's going to cause more harm than good. And since the Americana has been built, the traffic in that area is much greater than it was. And there have been times when we couldn't get out of our driveway because between Columbus and Central, it was solid traffic, bumper to bumper. And they were, why do you need a speed bump for that? And if you get emergency vehicles on that street, and they have been called several times to that area, to that street, often right around where we live, then there's no going through there at all. The garbage trucks, when they go through, and you get wide vehicles. You can't have two wide vehicles. You couldn't have an SUV and even our car pass at the same time. You have to pull over where there's a driveway or something to let the other one by. So the need for a speed bump, in my opinion, is just not there, and I would prefer that there were no speed bumps. Thank you.
Mr. Haskin, I have a question. Are you a
Yes.
property owner or are you a
I
tenant?
live on the property.
No, are you an owner or a tenant?
A tenant.
How long have you been living there?
Since 1991.
Okay.
No. I've been living in Glendale since 91. 2000.
Since 2000, you've been living on this particular
Yes.
property?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Do we have any other cards? Please submit them. And if you want to fill a card, I'll give you the chance to do that. Next speaker is Elizabeth Rubin.
Hi, good evening. I'm speaking in support of the speed humps, and I'm glad to hear the measurement that the street is 30 feet curb to curb, which is very narrow. So it is surprising that how much speeding I personally witness on the block. And in addition to all of the cars that are parked, it is hard, it is very narrow to get around people. But in addition, with the increased traffic on Colorado, one block south of us on Vine Street, they do have speed humps. So if you're familiar with the neighborhood and you want to get around the traffic on Colorado, you come driving down Columbus, and without the traffic calming, it leaves us vulnerable to people speeding down the street. I've personally had my side mirror knocked off, and just issues with, I don't know if it's aggressive driving, but yes, you do need to turn, if you need to turn around in a driveway, people kind of are bearing down on you. But most importantly, I think because Vine has the traffic calming and we don't, we're kind of vulnerable, and we're a target for people trying to get around the traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Question to staff. We verified the petition, we verified the signatures, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And obviously it was initiated by a resident from
Yes.
from
Actually,
the-
staff do not send out the petition. It's actually run by the requester. Basically, it will be go
Correct.
to door to get the signatures.
But we called to verify, we verify the addresses and we make sure, okay.
That is correct, yes.
Can I ask
Of
a question, Wayne? So to address the gentleman's concern about not being given notice, so if someone is residing on that street and it's being left up to the residents to collect the signatures,
Correct.
at what point does the resident who is missed out on the petition itself get notice of this event?
It would be part of the. Actually, we are sending notification to residents that we are taking this item to the TBC.
I see.
So they get a
They get it
1 week
at that
notice
point.
in advance. Yes.
I see.
Yes.
Okay.
For me, honestly, I know what you're saying. Okay, any questions? There is a truth in what Mr. Askin said, that, you know, when you want to slow speed down, you do a road diet and you narrow it down. There's a truth into that, but then again, this is Glendale. I have seen high speed on very narrow streets. The study meets all the warrants. Adjacent streets have speed humps. One thing that I want to warn the residents that signed the petition is that speed humps are noisy. We've installed them in locations only for residents to come back and tell us that I can't sleep at night because of the bumping noise. Well, it costs $3,000 to $4,000 per speed hump to install, and the city will be in no position to take them out. So please be cognizant of that. It is very important. Do they slow down speeders? Yes, they do. But if it's an SUV going over it, or if it's a big truck going over it, they don't slow down. So that's another thing to keep in mind. With that, and if there are no other questions,
Actually, I have another question for you, Wayne. So, again, to a point that the gentleman brought up about the placement of the speed humps. I know that you said it's equidistant and kind of broken up evenly, the two humps on the street, but is any consideration given in terms of adjusting those humps to perhaps avoid more of an inconvenience to a particular homeowner or resident who's going to be right next to that hump?
Yes, in order to, well, first of all, as I mentioned, in order for the speed humps to be effective, we will basically space them almost equally. The only thing is we will not install the speed humps in front of driveways and where area that is going to block drainage and manhole, that type of stuff. That's why there's some flexibility in moving the speed humps.
but not moving it 2-3 houses down. So if it's not my backyard, it's your backyard.
I'm saying, right, exactly,
Right.
like with the driveway and
Right.
where it would be difficult, say, backing out of your driveway.
Yeah, they will not be installed at the
Right,
driveway,
okay.
and probably 10 feet on each side of the driveway.
That's correct.
Yeah,
I have a question, please.
of course.
You might have covered this earlier, so I apologize. What determines the number of speed bumps on a length of street of that size?
Good question.
Basically, it's distance. Usually, speed humps are effective within 300 feet or so. Anything longer distance, they will just speed up in between. So after first of all, as they approach a speed hump, they will start slow down, go through the speed humps, and then after that, they will slow down a little bit and then start gaining speed. So within certain distance, we need to basically introduce another speed humps just to maintain that low speed.
So do you feel that the two is appropriate and there should not be a third?
That is correct, yes. In this location, I believe 2 is appropriate. As a matter of fact, if you look at one block to the south, Vine Street, as the lady mentioned, there are 2 speed humps on that block, between Columbus and Central, and also 2 speed humps on Vine Street between Pacific and Columbus as well. So they are about the same distance.
So we do have additional cards, and I think we should hear them. Thank you. Hilda Rios?
Good evening. Yes.
Good evening.
Yeah, I'm in support 100% of the street bumps because definitely, it's so much speed there. There were many occasions that if my husband didn't pull me, I was so close for the car to hit me. I mean, because that street, is residential. So people should slow down when they go. The speed, I think, is about 35, 45, and if you don't move, they just, will hit you. So my husband and I, we are in the support of the, having the street bumps 100%. Definitely. We lived there 17 years, and I notice now that it's getting worse.
Thank you.
Yes, and there are many children that, they are around, and so we are really concerned about it, very concerned. Okay, so this is all I want to say. So support 100%.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Humberto Rios, or is it the same card?
Yeah, it's the same card, but he wants.
Of course.
Well, sir, I support, to put those
Please
bans.
first state your name.
My name is Humberto Rios, and I do it to science all the people, all the neighbors, because it's terrible, sir, Every day is a lot of traffic and running very, very, very fast, like a freeway. It's a lot of children there, and I support to put those bumps.
Okay. And you reside on the street, right? You're an owner or a tenant?
I am a tenant.
You live there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I have one last card, Mr. Basrit.
Yes.
Sir.
My name is Vasrik Mofsasian. I live Glendale close 31 years and live in the Elk Avenue. West Elk Avenue is a 31 years. Many times, every day, because it's a people is a go car Colorado for mall or Target. Too many traffic. First street closed the parking lot for the Galleria, Elk Avenue.
Yes.
People is angry. Coming Elk Avenue is very fast until Columbus Avenue, and then turn go the parking lot. And then I support for bumper. If no believe this, you can stay over there every day, Especially I know who car, 2-3 car, very young, very fast. Anytime he moved that one, believe or not, I go scared because as I said, maybe somebody coming out or car, wherever is a heat. What happened? You know, have a time push the brake because very fast. Anyway, I support is a bumper. I tenant in the Elk Avenue.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Mr. Sotero Ordonez.
I want in Spanish.
Yeah, please.
My name is Sotero Ordonez, and I live in 328 Elk. Okay. Bueno, el problema es que de la central a la Columbus es terrible el tráfico que hay, motocicletas, carros, pero muy fuerte.
He says the problem is that in that street there's a lot of motorcycles and fast cars passing by, but really fast, and it's horrible.
Cuando uno trata de cruzar la calle, tiene que voltear para los lados y tener cuidado porque es peligroso que lo pueden atropellar o uno nunca sabe.
That every time he wants to cross the street, sometimes he has to look like both ways, like cautiously, like a lot of times, because he never knows when a car could come and hit him.
Eso es todo.
That's it.
Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you. It looks like we're filling one more card, and that will be... Sorry. No, it's okay, and that's why you're here. I was surprised when I had only one card.
I have a question while we're waiting.
Of course.
I think I'll wait.
Okay. I have Maru Lopez. Mario. Yes, sir. It says Mario.
Sí, mi nombre es Mario López. Ok, pero para que me llame,
Yes.
yo no hablo bien el inglés, quiero explicarle bien. El problema es que a veces ellos no están explicando bien lo que está pasando. La gente pasa 65 millas por hora, nada de 35 ni 40. A veces yo peleo con ellos y les grito, pero no hacen caso. El problema es que aquí los carros parquean aquí a la derecha y a la izquierda. No se puede ir a esa velocidad tan es demasiado. Aparte,
Let's take a break, so yes.
So he's saying that the cars pass by 65 miles per hour, nothing of 45, 35, or the speed limit, 25. And he says that it's too much fast. And sometimes he's like fighting with them because it's too much and screaming at each other, going back and forth. And yeah.
Ya, ok. A mí me parece que esa gente que pasan por ahí, pues tiene negocio con la gente que pone espejos, ¿no? Porque todos los días se llevan 2 o 3 espejos de los carros. ¿Comprende? Todos los días. Todavía no han matado a nadie porque la gente ya saben, ya están medio locos la gente esa. Y entonces pues la gente ya tiene miedo de ir la hora.
He says that so many times the cars are passing fast and they knock down the rear mirrors and that it's just too much.
Ok. Los niños no pueden, para salir con los niños, hay que llevarlos en coche por la mano. Porque como hay todos los carros están parqueados aquí no hay parqueo. Pero los muchachos salen sin darse cuenta. Y no lo han matado porque todo el mundo está ahí. Es demasiado.
That sometimes there's children and you have to hold them from the hand because it's just too much. The cars passing by fast, and he's saying that thank goodness no one hasn't died yet.
Ok. Si alguno de ustedes pudieran parquear que sea 1 semana o 2 semanas ahí, yo sé que iban a poner enseguida esto, porque le van a romper los espejos. Y a nadie le gusta que le rompan los espejos.
He says that no one likes their rear mirror to be broken.
Ok.
Bueno, gracias.
Es todo ya. Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you for translating. You did a great job. Questions, Mr. President? You will? Okay. So I'm going to close the communications on this, and then if there are any questions, any comments,
I'd like to make a comment, I guess. Just understanding the whole process of this, the one thing that makes me feel like it should be perhaps adjusted is that initial petition phase when we have the residents who are trying to seek, say, a speed hump on their street, gather signatures. And I think it's at that point that a resident who's being approached by other residents has a understanding of both sides of what it is they're petitioning for. Some sort of an information, I mean, as opposed to getting notice, say, a week before saying, hey, this is going to be proposed, come and look. But someone who's being approached saying, isn't our street horrible? Isn't it so fast? I mean, I think everybody in the city of Glendale might be able to say, yes, let's sign something. But if they were to understand, as Chairman Sahakian brought up, that there's a lot of noise associated with it. These are things I don't necessarily think people who are signing a petition might not necessarily understand the cons to having speed humps put on their street. So I'd love to see, as petitions are being circulated, that with it, some information be given with that signature.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Jacobian, we actually, along with the petition, we sent to the requester a package, basically information, and such as the map we show the location where we want to put the speed humps, and also some of the background information as well, which is, you have a very good suggestion, is setting the cons about the speed humps in that package, and definitely we will incorporate that into our package, yes.
Thank you.
Has there been any, or do we have any reports? Is there, in terms of traffic accidents or number of tickets handed by police department, anything that came from the police department justifying that this is an unsafe street or a street where cars are traveling with elevated speeds? Has there been any single incident or just simple traffic, cars going at accelerated speeds?
Yes, that's why we conduct the speed survey. We have the actual speed measure on that block.
Then I have that. But as far as tickets, do we have number of tickets handed out for speeding tickets?
No, that's not part of the guidelines we have currently. Yes.
But did the staff to get any kind of report from police department about if there was any tickets handed to transients?
Yes, it depends on the nature of the street. Some of the local street police may not have enough enforcement at those locations. So we usually go by the actual speed we measure on that block.
Based on the survey you're taking?
Correct.
But not based on what the facts are in terms of tickets or enforcements or accidents or events that are occurring there?
Well, actually, we would do a collision history research, but not in terms of tickets issues on the block.
Okay, thank
you. Any comments? Okay, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I also am aware of the speed bumps and the cons that come with it. I think it's looking at the neighborhood traffic calming program. I do have a question about that. Are there other tools in that toolkit, so to speak, that would address traffic calming or help with traffic calming other than speed humps?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Batrusov. We actually, in the traffic calming guidelines, there are other miscellaneous measures for traffic calming. However, so far we have been using different one of them as nothing as effective as the speed humps. Yeah, technically you can stripe the edge of the travelway, basically to narrow down the travel lane to give the impression that you have a narrower travel lane, or you can put speed detection signs on that block is temporary measures. But in terms of permanently installing the speed humps are the most effective one. And we have this program over more than 15 years now, and it is quite effective. The speed humps we put in, for the most part, is very effective.
I would like to see the city consider updating the traffic calming program. I've seen in the city of LA there's something called the Active Streets LA, and it's a traffic calming toolkit that indicates somewhere between 25 and 30 different tools to calm down traffic. Roundabouts, traffic diverters, speed bumps is one of them, edge lines. There's all sorts of things that I think the residents can take a look at and kind of decide on their own what can apply to which street, the respective street they live on. And I think that this issue is going to be coming before us frequently. It's not just Elk that has this issue. I'm seeing in social media that a lot of people are upset about speeding on Highland. I was just at a community meeting about speeding on Pacific north of Kenneth. This isn't the only street, and it's not the only city where this issue is prevalent. So I think it would do us a good service, and maybe the commission can review these tools so that we go to the residents and say, look, you have these assortment of options, and it's not just the speed bump that we can incorporate on your street. Provide some more diversity for residents to choose from.
I absolutely support that approach. I think it would be good that there are many, I don't know when this has been looked at recently compared to what we have now, but there are a lot of other ways to mitigate traffic than only speed bumps. And I think it would be good, separate from this, that maybe as being requested that the commission could have the staff take a look at that situation and see how other cities are doing it also, instead of always resorting to speed bumps. If the yes. Other commissioners concur.
Right. And actually, some of the streets, they are not even qualified for speed humps. A lot of the streets are not even qualified for speed humps. Highland, for example, Pacific, they are emergency response route, so speed hump is out the door right away. So in terms of tools, it's actually kind of limited. Effective tools are kind of limited. Traffic circle doesn't apply for really tight street, like 30 feet curb to curb. It doesn't really work well. But definitely we should look at other measures as well. Yes.
My comments on this: I did drive Elk Street. The bottom line is it's a bypass route to Colorado going to the mall. People use Vine and they use Elk, but because there's speed humps on Vine, they use Elk more than Vine. I'm not sure if the humps is going to discourage that. Sometimes it does discourage that, but especially on holidays and busy days when Colorado is busy, it's unfortunate. Unless you kill the socket at one end, it's gonna keep being a bypass route. Now, having said that, I think speed humps is a good idea. It's the least that we can do, I think, to help the quality of life. So I'm going to end it there, and we do have a motion to approve staff's recommendation, and we can move on that if the commissioners agree.
I'll move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Motion approved. Can we get roll?
Commissioner Kirkjian?
Yes.
Commissioner Yakubian?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Bartuso?
Yes.
Chairperson Sahakian?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. Next item, please.
Before the next item, if I may, because this is what I was wanting to talk about earlier, but I wanted to see what was going to happen with the motion or the recommendation. Given the discussions that have been stated and the issues on that street, and knowing of some past circumstances, is there any merit to attempt to coordinate with the police department the day of, or certainly right after those bumps are there, those humps are there, that there be some type of enforcement? Because there'll be people who are going to take that street not knowing those humps are there, and there could be some consequences. Is there a way that the police officers could be by there, given the safety issues that have been discussed? It would seem like it would be inappropriate to just install the humps and leave. It might be good to coordinate with either the police department or people who are responsible to watching these people that are driving 65 and 75 miles an hour. I mean, eventually they'll slow down, but they may not the first or second time, at least not the first time.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Gonzalez, that's a very good point. When we install the new speed humps, we definitely have all the signing, pavement marking, and the new orange flag installed for the speed bumps. On top of that, on a regular basis, we provide police department a location for their consideration of speed enforcement, and definitely we should include this into their list for police to be monitoring this location.
So this will happen?
Yes, we can work with the police department, yes.
Thank you.
Do we have the speed limit trailers? I've seen them on
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. In this situation, I would hesitate putting that trailer because it could be damaged because of the width of the street.
My concern there is that, and that's a very good point, if you're going at high speed, you hit a bump, you lose control. On a 30-foot roadway, you're going to plow into cars or hit people on the sidewalk. So I think it would be wise to caution people, just like that's what you're doing with the flags. You're telling them there's a new device. So adding the 25-mile-per-hour sign or your speed sign, or maybe some static signs, reminding them of the speed limit is a good idea, I believe. If we can look into that.
I think the chairman's comment about the trailer concept, I think it's important that something like that be looked at for a while, because there can be some serious consequences. People driving that street knowing that those humps are not there, and maybe putting something there for a period of time to monitor it in addition to police. I think it would help the neighborhood.
Maybe we should rent them, so if they get damaged, we're not responsible for them.
Wait, what happened? What happened on Vine?
On Vine, actually,
when you installed it, I mean, that's a parallel street, and it's right. What happened? Were there any issues in terms of what we're discussing here?
We are not aware of any issues, but it was installed for a long time. It's exactly the same block, just to the south.
Width? Is it the same width?
Vine is
a little wider.
I believe it's a little bit, maybe a 36 feet or something like that.
Roadway, yeah. Because I drove both of them, it looked wider.
That is correct, yes. And definitely the speed trailer, maybe we will use the portable sign. If we can find a streetlight pole to mount the sign, we can do that.
That would be great. Thank you. So let's move on to the next item.
Item 5B is a report regarding the status of Tri-Cities Connectivity Regional Transportation Project. And at 5B1 is a motion to note and file the status of the Tri-Cities Connectivity Regional Transportation Project report.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, we have Mr. Shay Eccleston from the Public Works Manager from Public Works Administration here to give you a report on the Tri-City Connectivity Regional Transportation Project update.
Hi, good evening, Chairman Sahakian, members of the Commission. My name is Shay Eccleston. I'm with the Public Works Department. Before you is a informational report as requested by Commissioner Gonzalez on the proposed link between the Tri-Cities of Glendale, Burbank, and Pasadena. This map represents Metro's light rail lines as well as the orange line in the valley. It also includes lines and stations that are under construction right here and over here and down here. There is a perceived gap between the gold line in Pasadena and the red line and orange lines in North Hollywood, right here. In 2014, the Metro Board passed a motion expressing an interest in making this transportation link between the San Fernando Valley and the San Gabriel Valley. This map represents the proposed Burbank-Glendale LRT, and this is from a 1992 Metro Environmental Impact Report. This route still appears on the Metro's 2014 Short-Range Transportation Plan, but it remains unfunded and categorized as a Tier 1 strategic transit project. And as you can see, there's also, it runs primarily up San Fernando Road, but there is a downtown Glendale option. This map represents the proposed North Hollywood, Burbank, Pasadena Corridor LRT. Now, I should preface this by saying this is a straw man proposal by the firm Move LA, which is a transportation advocates that previously lobbied for the passage of Measure R. So they're, in a sense, this is from 2014, they're lobbying for a new Measure R, which they refer to as Measure R2, which you'll be hearing a little bit more information about later. But this is, just a depiction of how they perceive future rail. And I show it to you only to illustrate that the concept of a east-west light rail through Glendale is still on the radar, but it is still unplanned and unfunded. Recently, Councilmember Najarian, in his role on the Metro Board of Directors, proposed new bus service between the Tri-Cities. In November 2014, the Metro Construction Committee approved a motion directing the CEO to explore new bus service between the North Hollywood Red Line and Orange Line stations and the Lake Avenue Gold Line stations through Bob Hope Airport in Burbank. They also asked them to explore funding options, and Metro came up with two alternatives. This one is Alternative 1, which begins at the Del Mar Gold Line Station in Pasadena and features a stop in downtown Glendale, stops in the Burbank Media Center, hits the Red Line and Orange Line station in North Hollywood before ending at the Burbank Airport. This proposed route would run every 15 minutes during peak hours and every 30 minutes during base hours. The time to travel from one end of the route to the end is 65 minutes. This is Route 2. The only significant difference between the two routes is this one features on the eastern end 4 stops rather than 1 stop in Pasadena, and it ends at the Lake Avenue Gold Line station. This route would take 71 minutes from end to end. And another important feature of this map is it shows here in blue, that is LA DOT commuter express line that runs every 30 minutes during rush hour. And as you can see there, it has a lot in common. This is another map of the commuter express 549 from LA DOT. It runs, as you can see, from Pasadena all the way to Encino. And it features many of the same stops as the proposed alternatives do, such as the Burbank Media Center and downtown Glendale. It's important to note that this line only runs during rush hours, and it only runs every 30 minutes. In the event that Metro were to move forward with either of the alternatives, this line would be unlikely to continue as it is. It just has too much in common, and it would be an overlap of the two routes. LA DOT has indicated to Metro that they would be willing to consider altering this line in order to meet the needs of what has been proposed, provided that Metro provides funding. And finally, briefly, this is actually the Burbank Metro system. The proposed alternatives run along this street right here, intersecting these lines. But if somebody were to take the commuter express and want to go to the Bob Hope Airport, they would actually have to ride it further up to the Red Line and Orange Line stations and get on the, this is Burbank's Yellow Line, to take it up to the airport. It's asking a lot for somebody who's hauling around luggage to take those two routes. So the idea of one bus that you could ride from Pasadena or Glendale to the Burbank Airport could be attractive to travelers. And the latest status of this effort is that Metro is currently reviewing their options and trying to identify funding for the project. And in March, the Metro Operations Committee will be meeting to discuss the new route, and the new route will be considered at that time. That's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Commissioners, any questions? Thank you for the presentation.
I have a lot of comments and questions, if I may, please. First of all, thank you very much for providing this. I think this is a very good initial step to start some, hopefully some serious discussions over the few years that we have left to attempt to get better public transportation connected to our city, given the population we have. There was an adjective that was used about this perceived gap. I think it's not perceived, it is a gap. I think that there are a lot of people that, if you look at the maps that you showed us up there, especially the first one, it's obvious that we have no connection, especially with the light rail, to the downtown area of Los Angeles. And I think when I made the request, I didn't mean to focus just on the east-west connection, but as mentioned in the report, and if I did, I apologize. I meant to have an update on the actual connection north and south and east and west. What I hope doesn't happen is that we end up focusing on east and west and losing out on north and south. But some of the information that you've given up there, unless I've missed it in the packet, some of the maps I didn't get. So maybe other commissioners did also, but there's some maps there that were not here.
Yeah, only we got the first two, the
alternatives.
That's what we got.
If you could please provide us all of them, it would be very helpful. The other thing I think we need to do, please, is to help us define the terms that are used here. There are terms like transit line, bus service, transit service, and when I read the memo, it's a little bit confusing to me as to what we're talking about. And I certainly appreciate the efforts that are currently before, as I understand it, Metro, given the appropriate, really good work by Councilmember Najarian and where that is right now. Can we just focus on that first, please? And then I'd like to ask some other questions on some of the other items in the report. When you make reference to that the project is being looked at, as you said at the end of your report, are you talking about the proposed project that Metro is looking at right now based on Councilmember Najarian's work? When you say the project, my concern is that there's so many words here that are not jiving for me, and I think it would help me get a better understanding of where we are.
Commissioner Gonzalez, the two alternatives that I showed towards the end of the presentation, those are the ones that are being considered by Metro.
Right.
And they're going to go before a Metro committee in March.
And that's when you referred to the funding of the project, that's what you were referring to?
That's correct. Metro staff is being asked to return the commission with funding options for those two alternatives. I didn't get into the details, but there are lower cost funding options and higher cost funding options, depending on whether Metro does it themselves, hands it off to LADOT, or uses a private contractor. The two other maps that I showed previously, the light rail options, nothing's going on those two at this time. Okay. I just presented them to kind of provide some historical context that these are being discussed. I know that there is some interest in possibly following up a rapid bus line, such as alternative 1 or 2, with rail eventually. But nothing is funded, nothing is planned yet, so it's still very much in that conceptual stage.
So this work that's going to be reported to the Metro Board will happen, I believe it said, is in March or next month in March, right? There will be a report
to the Metro Committee, not
the
to
committee
the,
of the
right,
board,
not to the full board.
Mm-hmm. And that's going to present similar to what you've had up there, alternative 1 and alternative 2.
Well, they've been presented with the two alternatives in the past. I'm not familiar with what their presentation will entail. I have been in contact with Metro staff. They're really not sure what the board members are going to do at that time, but all they could tell me was that it's going to be up for consideration in March.
So could you please let us know when that hearing is and what date? It's open to the public, right?
Well,
when you know, not now.
I know it now.
You do?
It's tentatively scheduled for March 19th, but it's been my experience with Metro that things are fluid, and that's when it is. That's the date that it is today, but it could possibly move.
Could we please request that if we have March 19th now, but if there's some notice of change, can we be informed, please, the commissioners?
Absolutely.
That'd be okay. So of the meeting, yes, please, and the time, that would be helpful. And that's going to be presented to a committee of the board. And can you please put up those two maps again, those two alternatives? I just want to get an understanding of them. And this we did receive in our packet. So alternative 1 and the alternative 2, the only difference is how they interface in Pasadena. Everything else is the same, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So when I see a map like this and I see proposed route of line, that's the one we're talking about right now. And then you made reference to this Commuter Express 549. That is happening already? Or is that also being considered?
No, that is a LADOT line,
Right.
Commuter Express line that
Okay.
is currently in place.
Right. And so eventually the buses that use that line will be parking in their proposed new LADOT facility next to Union Station, I think. There's a brand new LADOT maintenance and operation station going to be built there.
I'm not familiar with
Okay.
that. I would have to.
But
get
it's
back
the LADOT lines that are currently running on Commuter Express 549. Right.
I'm sorry. I missed that.
I'm asking, the route of the Commuter Express 549 is currently existing and operating?
Yes.
Okay. So what is the benefit of doing this other route if that's already there? What?
Well, for one, 549 does not hit the airport.
Okay, I see.
And there is a desire to connect all these major transportation hubs. The Gold Line, the red line, the orange line, the airport, the media center, downtown Glendale. There's a desire to connect all those different forms of transportation.
So if they are connected as there's the desire and if it's met, this Commuter Express 549 will go away, do you think?
Well, I can't speak for LADOT,
right.
But it just wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to have both of them operate at the same time.
Well, I'm going to make a comment. At every...
Well, if you, I didn't put it in your packet, but that Commuter Express 459 does have many of the similar stops.
It says proposed stops. That must be the proposed stops for what's painted in red up there. Because the other,
yeah. Well, this is a proposed route, so
Right.
these would be the proposed stops, correct?
But the existing stops for the 549, can you please go over those on the line?
yes, please.
Yes, they have. Let's see, 549. Excuse me one second.
Sure,
I have actually brought a color version of that route. I can share this with the commissioners. I only have the one copy, but it does show all the stops on 549.
And that has been going on about how long? I mean, a year, 3 years, 5 years? Does anyone know? I'm just curious.
I would have to get back to you. I don't have that information.
Okay, that would be good to know, please. But so we have a contract with LADOT to do that, I guess, right? The city of Glendale would, and I guess any other city that's engaged with that, that's an agreement with LADOT, I assume. So, okay, well, that's being passed out.
And Commissioner Gonzalez, the SUP are online. It's if you type in the 541 online, it has the eastbound stops and the westbound stops.
Okay. And just looking quickly, it looks like there's quite a few of them.
There is.
Yeah.
There is.
Okay, so the presentation, or what LADOT is going to, the staff, I guess, at Metro is going to present to a committee these proposed lines, and I am assuming the proposed cost, and these are technically bus service, right? This is a bus service. It's not any rail of any kind.
It's not rail. It would be an express bus service.
You call it an express bus service, okay.
Correct.
And then this strategy would be to do the east-west connection, thank you, the east-west connection that's been talked about, which is called the Metro Sub-Regional Mobility Matrix. Is that what that's it?
I'm sorry, where are you?
Actually, on the agenda that's before us, again, this is just nomenclature that would be helpful to understand. It says under 6, Metro Sub-Regional Mobility Matrix, San Fernando Valley.
Right, that's the presentation following this one.
Okay, so how does that relate to 5B? Report regarding the status of Tri-Cities Connectivity Regional Transportation Project. And then seeking a motion to file the status of this Tri-City Connectivity Regional Transportation Project report. I don't understand.
Are you asking why this one is an action item?
No, I'm just wondering what is the difference between the Tri-Cities Connectivity Regional Transportation Project? Is that the one we're talking about right now?
Yes.
The two alternatives. And what is that relative to Metro Sub-Regional Mobility Matrix?
Commissioner Gonzalez, I'm really not familiar with the presentation that's following mine.
On number 6, okay.
So,
okay. No, I appreciate your response. Thank you. I'm just trying to figure out what's what. There's so many nomenclature that I think has a lot to do with potentially funding and strategies on how to make sure Glendale covers this gap. There's a serious gap. Okay, so I think I understand now the east-west to a certain extent and the status of it. Can you please put up the first one of the of the light rail system? There was a very first visual that was placed up there. Okay, so it's obviously the gap, as we can all see, is on all that white area up at the upper right, and the amount of the population that is up there. In the report, it says that at one time, when you put this in context, which was really helpful, there was a discussion, I guess in the 1990s, to see about doing I guess it's a rail connection, north and south. Am I correct on that understanding? I think it says, in the early 1990s, Metro first studied the feasibility of a new light rail line from what later became the Cypress Park Gold Line Station.
Correct. Commissioner Gonzalez, that is this map right here. That is the...
Okay, so please, with your little laser, can you show me, I haven't seen this map before, can you show me where let's say Glendale, the city of Glendale is, and then...
Yeah, the city of Glendale is right here. So this would be along San Fernando Road.
Okay, Glendale is where? I'm right there?
Yeah, this would be Glendale right here.
Okay.
So
it's at an angle, okay. I see the north arrow at the bottom is kind of off to the side.
See, this is the 5.
Okay, I see. That's the 5.
Here, this is the 134.
Okay.
And the 2.
So, and where on that one is the Cypress Park Gold Line Station?
That would be down here at the bottom.
And that's there now?
Yes.
Okay, and that is, it's called the Cypress Park Gold Line Station, goes to Burbank through Glendale. It doesn't go through Glendale, though, right?
It does go through Glendale. It goes along the western border, but it would go along San Fernando Road right here.
Okay, that's the one though that didn't get done.
Correct.
Okay,
it has, or not. It hasn't been done yet.
It was proposed, right? And then it says an alternative through downtown Glendale. Later in 2004, the Glendale partnered with Burbank and Path. Then we started getting into left and right. I mean, east and west.
Right.
So right now, there's no discussion at all about any north-south connection between our city and Metro.
There is. It was part of the 2014 Metro short-range transportation plan. It's
and is that it? Did you make a reference? Oh, that's here. According to Metro 2014 short-range, the light rail line project through Glendale remains unfunded and characterized as a Tier 1. Okay, well, you said that earlier. Without imminent funding, it remains at a standstill. It's a very good statement. It remains at a standstill. So I guess, fellow commissioners, it would really be good to try to figure out what steps can be taken so that that statement could be a little bit more optimistic relative so that things aren't at a standstill. And that, but I guess the issue is if we try to move on something like this, it may impact the issues on the east-west. I mean, as far as discussions or negotiations or anything, I just think we're potentially losing out with connecting the citizens of Glendale with downtown LA. I mean, you know, that's where we want to take people. Need to go to this central station, and then from there they can go anywhere in the system in years to come. And right now we have not a perceived gap, but a major gap. And the east-west is going to help in many ways, but we're not getting people down to the, you know, south to the central station, unless you go all the way to the Pasadena line, pick up that line, and then go all the way down. It just...
You're absolutely right. It's not convenient. And my concern, Commissioner Gonzalez, is when it comes to Glendale, we always plug the holes with bus lines,
right,
and we don't do any rail lines.
Right, right.
And unless we become very proactive and attend these meetings, and obviously we have Councilman Ajarian on our side, but it's going to take more than that. Including, I mean, everybody who's watching this commission meeting, the residents of the city, to make things happen and not get shortchanged. You can always add bus lines, but it's not the same. And people don't use mass transit. The number one reason they don't use mass transit is because it's not convenient.
Right. You know, the last thing I would want us as commissioners to do, or ourselves to, get in the way of this other work that's happening. I think that the east-west connection has a lot of merit, and with that momentum should continue. And if there's any way that we could, it sounds like our city council is already behind that. I mean, that's moving, it's going in that direction. I don't know where the dollars are going to come to get it done, but I would like us to consider some way of getting a north-south light rail, even if maybe our city looks at something on the central part going north and south. That could be a wheel line of some kind that gets us to a light rail station coming south. What is the closest light rail station south of our city? Is there, there's the Metro Link, which is at the airport.
Well, I mean, there is the Metrolink station in the city of Glendale.
Right.
Interestingly enough, in preparing this report, I was checking Metro to see, how they would recommend, getting from downtown Glendale or Pasadena to the Burbank Airport, the Bob Hope Airport, under the current transportation system. And during some times of the day, because this Metrolink route is only during rush hours, they would recommend going downtown and then taking Metrolink up to the Burbank Airport, which is kind of remarkable that in this day and age, where obviously getting there is one straight line, you're actually going down to downtown,
right,
just to get to the airport.
Well, other comments on this, or other people have any thoughts about how important it would be to attempt to get a connection? I mean, maybe it's the focus of that one paragraph where it says that currently this is at a standstill. Is there any strategic way we can start working on? Just set that question aside for a minute. Does anyone know when there's any talk about a new bond for the transportation in the county? Is that 2016, 2017, or do we know?
2016.
16.
And that would be November, right? The general election, I guess, right there.
Yes.
So how do we, without getting ahead of other people that are, responsible and take the leadership at the city council, how do we get this to the next step of maybe getting people at Metro to know that we're serious about wanting to get wanting to fill the gap from a light rail point of view, or some combination of maybe we do a wheel thing and up and down, north and south in Glendale, but somehow we get it to a light rail of some kind. But going south, directly south. I mean, if you look at the old red line, there was a incredible red line that went all the way up Glendale.
Better design.
It was incredible. I have a map of it on my desk at home. I mean, in the office. I always look at that. Why we didn't get that line back. You know, I mean, there's probably a history behind that. But there was an incredible red line that went all the way up. I think it was Brand or Central.
My approach to that, Commissioner, would be we need to approach them with a proposal, with a project, a well-studied project, because the issue is the funding.
Yes.
And if we have something in writing, and I'm not sure, how much time staff has on their hand, or if it goes through the planning division or not, but maybe to form an ad hoc committee, involve some residents that are savvy, and start considering some proposals, put it on paper, and then make a study out of it, and then approach the bond measure with the proposal, with the numbers attached to it, how much it will cost, and try to realize it.
Like maybe a transportation consulting firm that could help in determining how can we make this connection. I think that we have to show Metro that we want to make an investment.
Yes.
It seems like it. Yes. In order to have something coming out of that bond.
Can I make a comment?
Of course.
I echo Commissioner Gonzalez's concerns, and I've said it in the past. I mean, I think we as a commission, I wouldn't perceive us coming up with some proposal as stepping on anybody's toes. Rather, I would consider it as providing support and backup for people that may need it, higher up that need to make the decisions. But, I live in the epicenter of Glendale. I live downtown. I do not own a car. So when I need to go to Burbank Airport, it takes 2 buses and an hour and 10 minutes to get there. There's no way I'm going to ride my bike or take my luggage down to the Metrolink, which is far away from where most residents live, and take a train up to the airport. Likewise, when I worked downtown, it would be 1 bus and about 55 minutes to get downtown LA from downtown Glendale. And nobody's going to do that if they had the choice to drive. It's severely inconvenient. I think that given the fact that we're getting thousands of new residents downtown, that there's no connection for them to get around other than by driving is very unacceptable. And I think that we as a commission are tasked with advising council on the decisions that they make. So I don't think it's inappropriate. I don't think it's stepping on toes to have this commission make a statement and advise council to prioritize these projects. It seems that we're going to be hearing on the next item what the proposed projects are going to be going for our Measure R2. And there's no mention of a north-south connection that would go from Burbank Airport, say, through Glendale down to LA. It does mention the bus rapid transit going east-west, but frankly, I feel like the north-south is even more important because of all of the traffic that you see going down the 2 south if you're heading to downtown LA. And a good chunk of that is Glendale residents. So I feel like we're in a position to make a statement. I feel like we're in a position to influence and guide the projects that are being proposed for R2. Because frankly, I don't see the residents doing that. I don't see the city's staff having the resources to do several outreach meetings to determine what the residents want for R2. I think we have that responsibility, if anything, and we need to take that. And if we don't, I would be severely disappointed, frankly.
First of all, thank you very much for the presentation. It was very enlightening. In order for us, actually, I echo whatever Commissioner Gonzalez said, but in order for us to make a recommendation, or I think we have to have city's long-term mobility plan incorporate to what was just presented and make a more informed decision as far as city's long-term mobility plan, which we have to incorporate residents, all the apartments that are being built, what's population in different pockets in downtown LA, and how many cars are anticipated to come in and out based on population, what could be potential of public transportation users, buses, metro, light rail, and we have to kind of look at the whole picture before we make any kind of recommendation without getting ahead of ourselves. Will it be possible for us to have a city long-term mobility plan be presented to us and incorporate to this in our next meeting?
For that, I would probably have to touch base with Rupert Golani and Catherine Engel to discuss. You're asking to bring a discussion of the mobility plan back to the commission?
Yes, and
a presentation more than a discussion.
Presentation, yes.
It's a presentation.
That's the request, yes.
Which will include all the new residents that will be moving into all the new projects basically that are being built or just got completed. And based on the new occupancy levels, look at if people have to move around. How are we going to move them from Glendale, downtown Glendale to downtown LA, Burbank Airport, LAX, city?
The good thing about that, I can see now where one could say that, okay, we got left out before, we had a certain population.
Yeah.
Now we have a proposed new population. I mean, there's been a strategic move by the city council over the last few years to get that density up. The density, we're making, really a better city as long as we do it with quality, because we're going to have more activity, more people. So maybe there's an argument that could be made that now we have an enhanced population, as you're suggesting, and that there's even a better need, more of a need for this north-south connection. Without giving up on this east-west connection, I don't.
And not at the edge of the city.
No, not at the edge of the city, into the city,
Right.
just
Through the city.
just like the original Pacific Railway red cars. If we had that, it would be incredible. I mean, it goes right through the city, and all those people that are going to be living in the city could do that rather than families having two cars. They can have maybe just one car, and they'll use the light rail and go right downtown and get anywhere from there. This is not just the future. This is where we need to be now, and I think it's a serious gap. It's very serious. I think we're going to miss out for the next generations of the people who live in Glendale to get to the public system in the county. We're basically missing the boat, and I think it's a concern. I think you've expressed it too. It's a real concern in the long run. We are going to miss the boat for other people living here over the years to be able to use a system that's going to be, I mean, look at the Blue Line. The Blue Line, incredibly, the ridership is totally beyond what was ever predicted. They used to run that with like 2 cars or 3 cars, 5 cars on that line now, and they're generally packed.
Yeah.
We're going to miss out. Glendale has to be a part of the system. And I support the east-west very much so. I think we need to figure out a way to get the north-south through the city. And what is on the recommendation to make a file, what is status of missing link regional transportation project? What is the missing link regional transportation project? I like that word. We have a missing link. We definitely do. But it's the first paragraph of the recommendation.
I think that actually may have been an old version of the motion that you got in your packet. It was changed to reflect the title of Tri-Cities Connectivity Regional Project Update.
See, the reason for my concern of using the Tri-Cities is that we then we don't want to not focus on the Tri-Cities. We want to focus on the Tri-Cities, and we want to focus on the Glendale downtown through the city going north and south. So there is no missing link regional transportation project report. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, right. That's correct. It would just be to accept and file the name of the report, which is the Tri-Cities Connectivity Regional Transportation Project Update.
Well, I would be okay with that. I just want to make sure, though, that there's, depending on other commissioners' thinking, that there's some action steps that don't limit it only to the Tri-Cities.
Commissioner Gonzalez, I received the action items from you, the feedback. We're going to look into, all the feedback that you gave us. I'll discuss it with Mr. Galanian. The title of the report that you accept and file will make no difference.
Okay. And the mobility plan that was commented on could be something we could, there is the city has a mobility plan, I think, right?
Sure they do.
Yeah. Why are we laughing?
I don't think there is.
I think
an updated one.
There's not an updated one, but there is one from years ago.
Yes, that is correct. There's a mobility plan for this. I believe it's 2000 and actually, Mr. Alan Loomis from Community Development is here. Talk about the mobility plan as well.
Yes, there's probably two different documents you might be referring to as the mobility plan. There is a document called the mobility plan, or it's actually called the mobility study, downtown mobility study. It was adopted in early 2007 by the City Council. That ran in tandem and supported the downtown specific plan. So it was really focused on the downtown. In terms of it being a citywide mobility plan that would address, for example, anything north of Glen Oaks or the kind of regional transit connections you've been discussing, the downtown mobility plan study of 2007 doesn't really address those. For that, a comprehensive citywide mobility plan, you'd probably be looking at the city's circulation element of the general plan. And Wayne, do you recall when we've last updated that kind of comprehensively? It's quite, it's been some time, let's say that.
So the point made about our new population and the growth of the downtown also means some of these things should be brought up to date. Because now we have almost real numbers compared to 7 or 8 years ago.
Correct. And I will, for the Commission's interest, in October of last year, in fact, I was just citing it for an applicant, October 21st of last year, we did a fairly comprehensive policy review of both the downtown specific plan and the mobility study for the City Council. It was largely focused on where did the downtown specific plan as a land use plan come from, but we did touch on some of the recommendations of the mobility study that have been implemented to support that. For example, the parking meters on Brand Boulevard, we're going to be implementing some downtown wayfinding signage for parking purposes later this year through a Metro grant. There's a number of features that the mobility study recommended to support the development downtown that have been implemented and a few that have yet to be.
So this didn't go beyond any way of connecting to the Metro light rail system?
No, the downtown mobility study really didn't talk about these kind of regional connections to Burbank, to Pasadena, or to downtown LA. It was really focused internally within downtown Glendale, kind of greater downtown Glendale, if you will.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Any other comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll have a follow-up discussion or presentation?
Well, what I would like to do, and I'm not sure if we can do this, is for the commissioners to convene, have a meeting, sit down and discuss this and see what the commission wants to see, and then bring it to one of our commission meetings, and then from there take it to council. Is that possible? I know there's some Brown Act issues and what have you, but can we meet and talk about this?
Yes, Chairperson Sahaki and members of the commission, probably right now is not the appropriate time to do that. We can agendize it and request a further report based on the comments provided by the commission, and agendize it for the future. Have a discussion regarding
agendize the item that we should discuss this, you mean?
To discuss a report, a future report that is prepared.
I think, are you getting at the idea of revisiting the mobility plan and maybe seeing if we can start incorporating the idea of these bigger, large.
Well, we all agree that staff is busy enough.
Very much so, yeah.
And I do agree that this commission needs to initiate, I don't want to call it a study, it's not a study, but the ideas that we want to push forward.
Framework, you mean?
The framework. And my concern is that, are we allowed to do that? Can we sit down at Starbucks, 4 or 5 of us, and look at the plan and discuss it and come up with ideas? That's my question.
I don't think that would be appropriate to do so.
Try the coffee bean.
Coffee bean, maybe? It will be.
But maybe we can ask to agendize the item to bring it in discussion of how we want this to be, as opposed to just discussing it on the side, but bring it up on, we just have the discussion in public. What do we want done? What would we like to push forward? And I appreciate Commissioner Gonzalez's passion and interest in taking the lead on this, because it's a really difficult issue to tackle.
It is.
And until you speak out and keep sounding the alarms and beating the drums, things don't necessarily get done the way they should. So maybe that's something we can do without putting extra load on the staff, but have that agendized as what we would like to see addressed in a revisitation of the mobility plan.
Okay, so can we agendize this at the next meeting, please?
And we can come with some great ideas.
Yeah, in regards to I like the momentum. In regards, this goes now back to the notion that we've changed our meetings this year for every other month. But we also said we could have a special meeting if the commissioners felt it was worth it. I'm a bit selfish on this one. But I'm going to miss the April meeting. My wife scheduled a vacation out of the country, and we leave just before that April meeting. I think we meet in April let me just confirm here. I think our next meeting is April the 27th, I think? Yes. That's what I have on my, can we confirm that, please? That's correct. Okay, thank you.
Every 2 months, the fourth Monday.
Yeah,
it is possible to move the meeting by a week, isn't it? We've done it in the past.
Yes, we can definitely hold a special meeting.
Well, I don't know if I should move the meeting for one person. I feel a little bit uncomfortable about that. I'm sorry?
It's an important topic.
Okay, so now...
That's an item that requires everybody's consensus. We appreciate if everybody's present. I think we all need to be present.
As opposed to special meeting in March, you mean, and still have the April meeting in the regular date?
We can do that too. That's another option. That is another option.
One of the reasons that might make sense if we can do that is that it keeps the momentum going. But I just if we could either move that the week or have a special meeting on the 23rd. That's the fourth Monday in March.
The question is, can the staff move fast enough to prepare the report?
I appreciate that. Yeah,
Can you guys ask Rubik and look into it to see if when you'll be ready with a report, and maybe we can just if you need the 2 months, maybe we can do it a week after the special meeting instead of a week before.
Oh yeah, that's possible. Yeah. Like the 30th or something.
Like
there's 5 Mondays in March.
So just get back to us on that. You can email us.
Good. I appreciate I'm sorry for the additional time, but I appreciate the time that we took to discuss it, and I also appreciated the report. I thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Any more questions on this?
What do we do with the action item? Are we moving?
Well, that was my next question. I do have a motion on this, so this is just to file, I'm assuming.
Correct.
It's not a motion of acceptance.
It's just to receive and file the report.
Okay.
Chairperson Sakian.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and move 5B1.
Second.
Okay. Thank you.
Roll call.
Next item, please.
Oh, roll call.
Oh, roll call.
Sahakian, we need a roll call. Commissioner Kirkjian,
Yes?
Commissioner Yakubian,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Bartuso,
Yes.
Chairperson Sahakian.
Yes. Thank you. Item number 6.
Item 6 is a presentation only. At 6A is a Metro Subregional Mobility Matrix for the San Fernando Valley.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, you just have discussed the potential of new bond fund for Measure R2 or Measure R2 by Metro. And what Metro did in cooperation with local agencies and Caltrans, LA County, they have prepared this sub-regional mobility matrix. Basically, it's a list of projects that could potentially be funded by this new bond fund. And what we did is we basically focused on the Glendale portion of it as a huge matrix. Otherwise, we could be here till Easter. So that's why I'm just focusing on the Glendale portion of it. I'm going to cover projects that is under arterials and also highway. And then Mr. Alan Loomis from Community Development is going to talk about active transportation projects as well as the transit projects. So also the table we have is a very small. I'm trying to fit the big matrix into 4 slides. So you also have a hard copy in front of you, and I'm going to go through that one by one. The very first project is the arterial project. It's a grade separation project. Back in August of 2014, I believe, Metro Dan Sepulveda, Mr. Dan Sepulveda from Metro came in and did a presentation to the TPC members to basically introduce different options they are considering for this Doran Street grade separation. And right now, this is the project, and they are currently actually working on the screening out different alternatives and also on some type of conceptual design. So this is the first project that's going to be on this list. And as you see, on the time frame, it is listed as short term, which is 1 to 10 years. And as I understand, they're going to have the preliminary design probably sometime maybe beginning of next year or so. The second project, A10, is the Monterey Road extension to Glen Oaks Boulevard over Verdugo Wash. This is a project also in our mobility plan. And actually, I have a slide that shows this potential connections. Basically, it's from the intersection of Glen Oaks and Geneva, and have a connection over the Verdugo Wash, connect with Monterey Road. And that would provide direct access to the freeway, to the 134 freeway that way. And also, we are potentially proposing some type of road closure here to discourage cut-through traffic to go into Glen Oaks Boulevard. And so that's one of the, and again, those are very preliminary projects right now. They are actually in the city's mobility plan, but as we move along, some of those projects may be modified, and we're still working with Metro to finalize this matrix. Second project is the A11, is Orange Street extension over the SR 134, the State Route 134 freeway between Doran Street and Good Avenue. Again, this is a slide that's showing the extension here. Again, this is a original proposal that was done probably about more than 10 years ago. As you probably are aware that we have a Space 134 project potentially capping the 134 freeway. And this alternative would definitely be included in that study.
This would be going basically over that's a parking lot.
That is correct. That's why it's a very preliminary project. And if you look at it, it's actually a long-term project. It's 21 years plus project there. The next item is the SR 134, State Route 134 frontage road construction south of the freeway between Brand Boulevard and Geneva Street. And this is a slide that's showing some type of frontage road system continuation of like Sanchez Avenue, east of Brand Boulevard, and along the freeway, and somehow connecting to the Glendale interchange there. So the concept here is to have a one-way couplet, basically the eastbound on Sanchez and then Monterey on the north part. Again, this is very preliminary, and we will incorporate this into the Space 134 study.
Actually, this is something I believe I stated a few meetings ago. It's very much similar to Pasadena, where in Pasadena they have the streets, when you get off one-way streets, Villa, and I forgot what the other street is, just feeds into Fair Oaks and Lake and Raymond and all that streets, which I think will be perfect.
Right. And the advantage of this is actually you take out the weaving section out of the freeway. Basically, cars coming into the freeway and exiting freeway, you put that on frontage road instead of on the freeway itself. Next project actually is item 826 is Glendale Avenue. Basically, it's adding one northbound lane from Doran to 134 freeway, and that is the most congested section in the city, is Glendale Avenue. Yes, around the 134 freeway. Next item is 840, and this is called a TSM project. It's Transportation System Management Project. Mainly is to improve traffic flow without going through CIP type of projects like congestion management, incident management, congestion relief, that type of project. And the first one is the I-5 SR-134. Implement the arterial improvements in interchange areas to address movement with ramps missing at interchange. As you notice, right now, southbound I-5 to westbound 134, there's no connection ramp. And right now, people get off at Western. A lot of them get off at Western, going to go through Victory, going through Riverside, and impacting those areas. That project involved basically improving arterial system, maybe putting in closed-circuit television cameras, detector station, improving signal coordination just to handle that extra traffic. Item 841, if you see the locations, basically is all in County of Los Angeles. Some of them are adjacent to the city of Glendale, but it is basically a county project, and it involves a lot of signal synchronization. La Crescenta Avenue between Orange and the I-210 freeway, Montrose Avenue on Florencita to Del Mar Road, Ocean View Boulevard between I-210 to Florencita Avenue, Foothill from Lowell to Briggs, Pennsylvania Avenue from Orange Avenue to 210 freeway, Ramsdale Avenue from Orange Avenue to Montrose Avenue, Rosemont Avenue from Foothill to Montrose Avenue. And as mentioned, basically those are all in the county area at the northern part of the city. And then the item 842 is a sub-regional traffic management center for the city of Glendale. Our traffic management center was constructed in 1997, and a lot of equipment basically is obsolete now, and so it is in need of a revamping of our signal system as well as the traffic operations center itself. So that would be part of that project. The next slide is another matrix. Basically, this is the highway projects now. We're talking about arterial interchange program. A lot of the project actually is proposed by Caltrans, even though they're in City of Glendale's jurisdiction. SR-134, H1, SR-134 ramp widening program in Glendale involved the eastbound and westbound off-ramps at Pacific, and also the eastbound off-ramp at Central, westbound off-ramp at Brand, and also the westbound on-off ramp at Harvey. Basically, that project will add a bus rapid transit stop at the off-ramp, so that I guess they can just pull off the off-ramp, pick up passengers, drop off and pick up passengers, and then go right back onto the 134 freeway. The second, the H42 project is very much a sub-regional project and is proposed by Caltrans. Is the upgrade traffic signal system at on and off-ramp intersections with arterials, connect with RAM metering system, establish communication with fiber system, and upgrade communication of field device on Internet protocol. It's a Caltrans project. Basically, they're trying to connect the signal timing with the RAM metering. As you probably be aware, right now in the downtown area, because Caltrans signal timing and the city's timing are different. They are running on a shorter cycle length. That's why it is a challenge to coordinate the traffic signal along major arterial in the downtown area, such as Brand, Central, because they are running at different cycle length. And on top of that, they also have a RAM metering that basically stop vehicles from getting on the freeway ramps, and they queue up on the on-ramp and also on city street. So this project actually is going to help local agency to work with Caltrans. Basically, hopefully we can coordinate the signal better, and also to maybe have a more flexible way to adjust the RAM metering instead of having a fixed RAM metering during the different time of the day. And the next project is H44, is the I-210 Interchange Improvement Program in La Crescenta and Montrose. The first item is modify the traffic signal and channelization and add a westbound on-ramp at La Crescenta Avenue. And again, this is totally in County Los Angeles area, because right now there's no on-ramp for the westbound direction. And the second part is to modify the intersection and signals to improve southbound to eastbound movement at Pennsylvania Avenue. And that is actually, especially during morning peak hour, there are a lot of queuing actually under the freeway on Pennsylvania Avenue for people to get on the eastbound ramp. So Caltrans is proposing some type of improvements at that location. Next item is H4. SR 134 Central Avenue, grade separate eastbound and westbound on and off ramp between Pacific and Central. Now, this project actually, I talk about a little bit about the weaving problem on the freeway. Currently, when you go, let's say, westbound on 134 from Central to Pacific, you have the vehicles entering the freeway from Central Avenue. At the meantime, you have cars exiting the freeway onto Pacific. And during that section, there's a lot of interference, a lot of weaving activities in there. And number one, it's a safety concern. Number two, it also reduces capacity on the freeway. So this proposal, actually this project is proposed to separate the on and off ramp for the 134 freeway. So in this way, by grade separating them, so the Pacific traffic exiting the freeway first before the Central traffic go in. And the only way you can do that is to grade separate the on and off ramps. And in that case, they will basically, the exit traffic will be out of the freeway before the Central traffic entering. And it's the same thing for the other direction, for the eastbound direction as well. And the next project is the H5, is the State Route 2 and Mountain. Basically, the proposal is to widen the northbound off-ramp for an additional right turn lane, and also the southbound on-ramp. Right now, as you're probably fully aware. Correct. Yes. That would involve to the correct. Yes. Right now, we have requests for right turn lane for a long time, but because of the slope there, we are not able to add that additional lane.
When you say requests from whom?
From residents, actually, in the Rancho area. So the widening of the southbound on-ramp. Right now, you're probably fully aware, during the morning peak hour, long queues of traffic on Mountain Street going uphill all the way to the southbound on-ramp, yes. One problem of that is because of the RAM metering. You only, as you can imagine, you have two lanes merging into one as they enter the freeway. And with the RAM metering, actually, it makes it much difficult for them to queue up vehicles. So by widening that off-ramp, we increase queuing distance. And also, by the way, we are in a process of getting a cost proposal to do the improvement on Mountain, converting the number 2 through lane to a through and right turn lane for carpools so that they can go at the same time.
When will that be done?
Well, actually, we already got one cost proposal. I would say probably within maybe 2 months or so. We finally get the encroachment permit from Caltrans to do that work. And
are you going to need to do the handicap access on that 2 south entrance? I think that was part of the stipulation in dealing with Caltrans, is that they insisted that we
I believe we were able to convince Caltrans not to do the handicap.
Because there is very minimal. I have never seen any pedestrian traffic in that area at all.
That is correct. And as I understand, right now it's only signing and striping work.
I see.
And it should be done very fast, actually. So we're getting a cost proposal from contractor to do that right now.
Do we have any notion of the cost of these things? Is there any?
There are some preliminary costs. Some of them actually is really a shot in the dark. And even for Metro, they said with this new bond fund, they're looking at $20 to $40 billion. It's just that type of range. And as we get more and more into the detailed design, then we'll know more about the cost. But right now, it's really a guess.
And this comes from monies from Metro?
This was
based on the previous bond issue?
That is correct. Yes, that is actually, it would be this new bond that they are proposing, which is going on the ballot on the 2016.
Oh, I see. This is for the proposed bond.
Correct. That is correct.
You know, and just to interrupt for a minute, I'm sorry. It's interesting. Those are large numbers, and it would seem to me like maybe we should keep some of these things difficult to do car-wise, so we put our investment into public transportation.
Yes. There are also, if you look at the next 2 slides, there are also projects for transit project as well as active transportation project as well. Yes. And actually, as a matter of fact, I think the split between the funding, transit has a huge part of it. A lot of the funding are going to transit instead of actual capital improvement projects. And the next project is H6, is State Route 2 at Fern Lane, basically adding an off-ramp and an on-ramp. It says northbound off-ramp and on-ramp. I believe should be northbound off-ramp and southbound on-ramp. That's basically giving access to Fern Lane to the sport complex. And H7 is a State Route 2. At Holly Drive, it's basically adding the signals at the ramps. Right now, it's stop control, and we'll be signalizing those ramps if we get the funding. And H17 is State Route 134, eastbound and westbound off-ramp improvement at Glendale Avenue. Now, actually, this project is currently under design. I believe we're going to use existing Measure Out funds to fund this project. So we're working with Metro, most likely to remove it from this matrix. It is happening now, actually.
There's one more interchange, actually southbound 2 to 134 west. The 2 lanes merge into 1, and then there's traffic from Pasadena coming in, and there's bottleneck over there every morning and huge backup, especially folks coming from Pasadena, and it backs up on the 2 freeway, 2 south, and the problem is the 2 lanes merging into 1, and then they're trying to get into what's the solution for that? And there's nothing addressed in this proposal here.
Yes, that is correct. Actually, that's something that we'll be discussing with Caltrans. Again, this type of projects, it's kind of preliminary. We can work with Caltrans to maybe add in a project or shift fundings from one project to the other.
That could be incorporated to the Glendale Avenue project, because the Glendale Avenue on-off ramps where people are trying to get off at Glendale are the one that's the traffic light at Glendale is backing this traffic up, and while people from 2 south to 134 west are trying to coming in, that just everything is bottlenecking from Glendale Avenue on-off ramp and Brand of course.
Right. The Glendale Avenue project right now is mainly we're focusing on local streets, and is actually coming from the Glendale's allocation of Measure R funds. What we would like to do is to work with Caltrans to maybe Caltrans can contribute their funding towards the RAM improvements there. But that's something that we definitely can discuss with Caltrans.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back.
5. Okay.
The double right makes it happen.
Actually, I'm sorry. Actually, to be correct, I believe right now is left and then left and right. So yes, and then actually we are creating a right turn lane, right turn only lane, and then double left turn lane. Actually, for 3 lanes, you're correct. Yes, that's right. That's the. Yes. And the freeway, project H18. This is is Caltrans. Actually, from 18 all the way to 34 are all Caltrans project. And again, from I-5 to 134 interchange improvement, they're going to somehow provide the carpool transition with the missing RAM. I do not know the detail about this project. I still need to work with Caltrans to find out what is their plan. But this is one of the project on the list. And then also southbound Freeway 2 at HOV lanes between State Route 134 and Glendale Boulevard. H47, I-210, HOV lanes from I-5 to SI-134. And then also H49 is the State Route 2, additional southbound lane between 134 and I-5. Those are all Caltrans projects. The last one is H34. It's a Songwall project. What we have here is on the I-10 freeway between Pennsylvania and Wytonia. This is actually in the county area. The city of Glendale is also currently has a project to put in Songwall through the city of Glendale, basically from Pennsylvania to Lowell. We have that project currently in the Measure R funding schedule. However, funding may not be adequate to complete the project. So if that is the case, then we may be looking to include that project in this Measure R2 matrix so that we can use adequate funding to finish the project. For the next 2 slides, Mr. Alan Loomis from the Community Development Department is going to discuss for active transportation and also for transit.
Thank you, Wayne, and good evening, Commissioners. I will probably be a little less expansive than Wayne was on each of these individual topics, but I'm happy to entertain questions as best I can. So can we move to the next slide, just so we're on the slides up. So we have 3 projects under bicycle pedestrian programs or projects. The first be to the Glendale bicycle transportation projects, including the Verdugo Wash Bikeway and bridges over the LA River. This would be a continuation to continue implementing the adopted bike master plan. Yeah, and in particular, if you recall, there was a dash line running down the Verdugo Wash for a conceptual bike way. This would include the funding to sort of build that line, and including the bridges over the LA River that would then connect it to Griffith Park and the LA River bike paths. B7, improvements to bike and pedal bridges and tunnels over SR 134, which would include Louise, Geneva, Concord, Columbus, Adams, and the tunnel at Kenilworth, which connects to Fremont Park. Those are proposals that have come out of the Space 134 study so far. Right now, these are the ped and bike connections that cross the 134 freeway. We think they could probably be improved aesthetically from a safety standpoint and greened up in some fashion, so we'd be looking at doing that. Bicycle access improvements to Glendale Transportation Center on Los Feliz Road and Brand Boulevard. Again, this is an outgrowth of the bicycle transportation plan to enhance bike access to the transportation center and to Atwater Village. Under ADA access...
can I stop you there for a second?
Certainly.
Are any of these improvements include any cycle tracks, any protected bike lanes?
The proposal that we're currently looking at for Los Feliz Brand Boulevard, we're exploring the options of cycle tracks. But we haven't, obviously, at this point, kind of fully engineered that one out.
Can this commission get involved once you start looking into the options, if we're here, obviously?
Certainly, I think we probably could arrange for that.
Thank you.
If I may move on to ADA access, the street and ped improvements to segments of Glendale Verdugo roads to provide ADA access to bus stops. As you may well know, Verdugo Road, there are bus stops on Verdugo Road, and this is the area kind of north of the college, but there's absolutely no sidewalks yet. So this would address some of those issues and ADA access, whereas we actually have to build some sidewalks to provide ADA access to our bus stops. We have one complete streets project listed thus far. This is for Cerritos Avenue, and this would be from the Glendale Transportation Center. Cerritos Avenue is the street that terminates on the archway of the historic train station, crosses San Fernando Road, bends ever so slightly, and crosses Brand Boulevard and connects to Cerritos School and ends at Forest Lawn. So the proposal would be to consider making that a Green Streets project. It's actually fairly wide right now, but because it's so short, carries relatively little traffic. I will say that this is potentially could be the city's second Green Street project. We have a grant that we've received from the state through Prop 84 funds to do a demonstration Green Streets project at Harvard and Louise. So we're starting preliminary engineering on that this year. So if that's a successful project, we could build on that for Cerritos Avenue down in the south end of the city. Under sustainability programs, electric vehicle charging station and public parking structures, we currently have one or two right now, but there is a push across the region to provide more electric vehicle parking stations, ideally ones where you swipe to pay with a credit card, so we're not giving away free power to everybody who wants to plug in their Nissan Leaf or whatever new car they're going to be driving. But there's obviously a capital expense to installing that infrastructure. The expansion of the Beeline maintenance facility, not all the property that surrounds the Glendale Transportation Center where the Beeline maintenance facility will ultimately be built is actually owned by the city, so this would include to sort of consolidate some property so that we could ultimately expand that facility if the time comes that we need to. The Harvey Park and Ride at State Route 134 to expand that is somewhat related to the BRT discussion. Right now on the eastbound, BRT can pull off at the stop and actually is able to sort of stay on the off-ramp, but basically pull off to the side, connect to the park and ride, and then get back on the freeway. If you're headed westbound, the bus actually has to sort of pull out onto city streets and do a rather circuitous route before getting back on the freeway. So the expansion of the park and ride facility would include somewhat necessary to be able to accommodate an expanded BRT on the freeway. This is all owned by Caltrans, but it obviously has an impact on us. That park and ride facility is a Caltrans property. Under transit and bus programs and projects, the first one, T7, to increase bus service and improve frequencies for Glendale Transit Service, namely the Beeline. We get frequent requests to expand service, particularly to the college and some of the other educational institutions, the Garfield campus, to provide evening service or weekend service. For example, currently on Beeline buses can drop you off for the evening classes, but we stop running service after evening classes at the college conclude, so students are stranded or they're taking their cars as opposed to the buses. So this would provide a funding stream to continue those sort of late night or weekends services. Ideally, we'd like to see that across the whole system, but it may be targeted to where there's a real need for the late night service. T15 to provide an east-west transit service on Foothill Boulevard for one-seat ride to and from Sunland to La Canada Flint Ridge. Right now, if you want to ride a bus from La Canada Flint Ridge, say JPL, into Sunland, you have to change buses at least once, if not twice. The current Beeline Route 3, as you probably know, services Montrose, but once it gets up to Foothill Boulevard, heads eastbound to La Canada and ultimately to JPL, but doesn't take you to in the other direction to Sunland. So there's really no one-seat ride across Foothill Boulevard to service Crescenta Valley. So this would be service either provided by Beeline or one of the other agencies to provide that service. BRT projects, the Pasadena North Hollywood BRT, you already heard about. Real-time transit info for fixed route operators, Metrolink, et cetera. This would be the sort of the kiosk that you would see that would provide you information at the bus stop or the Metrolink stop so you know when the next bus is coming. I will say one of the impediments to implementing that kind of extensively across the region is each one of those bus stops, if it has information, has a cell phone that's constantly operating to call the next bus service, and that ongoing operating cost is relatively expensive. So that's why you don't see that rolled out as extensively as we might like. And then finally, to expand parking capacity at the Glendale Transportation Center or Metrolink station, at some point we probably need to provide more surface parking and probably ultimately see a parking structure located in that area. Particularly as the hospital, Glendale Memorial Hospital, considers their sort of potential expansion needs. Perhaps there's an opportunity to partner with the hospital. They would put maybe some of their employee parking a little bit remote from the hospital at the transportation center. So that concludes our preliminary list that we've worked over. As Wayne said, this does not include everything that the region, the San Fernando Valley COG region, San Fernando Valley COG region has put on the list. This is just those items that are so far have the word Glendale mentioned in them.
Commissioner Yakubian.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I wanted to find out if you had any information on what's going on with the LA River project and what is the discussion, what is it at this point? And you know, I love the idea that was thrown out about the connectivity of Fairmont Bridge with Zoo Drive crossing over the LA River. And I know that the other side has the idea of, you know, it's that whole, I guess, making it into, for lack of a better word, what is it, marshland, swampland, flooding that area. But I'd love to know, because we did have a presentation on that by that gentleman. I forget, was he from?
Don Sepulveda.
Yes. Correct. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'd like to know where. I know they've had some community outreach meetings. Where is that? We're so invested in this issue. I mean, it's such a huge issue. I wish, you know, I mean, as sometimes we complain, we wish that the citizens, whoever's listening, you know, gets up and speaks out so people can hear. But that's a huge chunk of land that's, you know, in Glendale and around Glendale that we should be able to speak up for. Do you know anything? Do we need to call back someone to get an update?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Yakopian, we, right at this point, I have not heard anything from the group. As a matter of fact, they canceled the last updated meeting. As I understand, with the community meeting they had, they do not get a very clear direction from the public that what alternative would be supported by majority of the business owner or residents. So I think they're still looking at different alternatives right now, still giving points to different the matrix they have. But I do not have any update on that yet.
So it's still a brainstorming session, basically, with the public.
Yeah, just so I understand, has the city council officially chimed in on this? When do they speak? When does that happen?
I believe we're going to council in March to basically get an official response for the city.
Okay.
On what alternative we're gonna be
Very
supporting.
Good.
Yes.
Very good. Okay.
Regarding that issue, there was one of the meetings I attended. It was also attended by Commissioner Bartoshoff. I happened to meet him over there, and I had an extensive discussion with Don Sepulveda that day. And one thing that's inevitable, he mentioned, is Doran Crossing and Brazil Crossing. They will close eventually, and very, very soon. So once those two streets close, that's what we don't know what's going to happen. That's when all the bridges and ramps that's being discussed. So it's an interesting question that you raised, but I don't think they have an answer yet. I'd love to know what's going on.
Maybe we can ask them.
So in March, if it's scheduled to go to council,
we'll have a better understanding.
Forum, yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Go to the meeting.
For the tracks. Sounds like they're talking about.
Of course.
Question, please. This is a presentation only. It's an information item, as I understand it. Can you please help me? Is this the beginning of a list that's going to go to Metro for a potential bond?
That is correct, yes.
So given the discussions earlier, under transit, this is where we would want to put something relative to a north-south connection with the light rail?
Yes.
When is this supposed to go to the Metro, this report?
It's my understanding that they are still crafting a kind of list of legislation. The first step involved is for the San Fernando Valley COG to sort of weigh in. So that's the COG has been, or the Regional Council of Governments has been asking the local agencies to put together our lists that we advance to the COG, then the COG takes it to Metro. So there's cogs and wheels amongst cogs, if you will.
Yes, I can appreciate that. So is there a date when this has to go to the COG, the COG, and then is there a date that they have to get it to Metro in order to get a bond issue defined to the public that will vote on it county-wise?
We are working with the COG and their consultant team, outreach consultant team, right now. I don't know when the COG is expected to deliver this to Metro.
And this was presented to us as an information item, so we knew what some of the things. Now, the line items that are here, they came from our staff here in the city, or some of them were with Caltrans apparently.
Yeah.
That is correct, yes.
But some of them were initiated based on what we see as a need.
That is correct, yes. Some of them are actually based on our previous mobility plan.
Okay.
And then also some of them is from staff, and also some of them is from county, actually some of them are Metrolink too, and then from Caltrans.
So when this goes before the county to vote on it for a bond for what is normally known for transportation, that's what some of these items would be paid out of. And you give them a time frame. Is that the notion?
That is correct.
Well, given the amount of dollars that this represents, it would seem like there should be some prioritization of this by this city council, I would assume. And how does that happen? When are these prioritized, and who makes up the notion about the time frame? And what makes up this list, I guess, is what I'm asking. And then, given all that, when should we have the information about looking at a potential serious light rail connection through the city of Glendale?
No.
But to answer the question, and I'm not sure I have all the answers for you. Part of where this list comes from also is the original matrix that was put together for Measure R. So in some ways, that's where I think the consultant team in Metro just handed us, this is the list you gave us for Measure R. Mm-hmm. Strike things, add things. So that's kind of the process that we're in. So that kind of answers the list of what the priorities were. It's our working list coming from the original Measure R matrix. So I think this dialogue tonight from the commission would be useful to help sort of think about some priorities. Yeah. Some of these priorities are also based on, these long-range infrastructure projects, sort of building new ramps, flyovers at the freeway or something along those lines. Those are obviously going to take some time to fund and build. And so you wouldn't necessarily put those in the immediate
And like certain bond issues, I have a familiarity with because of our practice in our firm. Some jurisdictions who pass bonds, the line items that are there usually don't change. I mean, unless there's an issue with the raising of the money of the bonds. But these that are listed will eventually get done if a bond issue passes?
To be honest, I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, I think the answer is not necessarily. If it follows the way Measure R has played out, it very well could be that various jurisdictions get a certain collection of money, and a certain amount of it can be spent on bike infrastructure, a certain amount needs to be spent on freeway infrastructure, and then you can go back to Metro and sort of reprogram that money as necessary.
Where does the prioritization come from, the notion of like there's a lot of people that put a lot of money into making the traffic go better on freeways, with toll lines and all that. If we take that down just to the San Fernando Valley, just this area, who makes the decisions on where to put these monies relative to better planning for the future? I mean, who does that?
Yeah, if we look globally at how Measure R has been constructed and the straw man proposal they put up for Measure R2, they figure so many billions of dollars can be raised through this sales tax measure. It's actually not a bond measure, but the sales tax measure. And a certain percentage of it would be dedicated to highway projects, a certain amount to transit projects, a certain amount to bike or active transportation, and so on. And then my understanding is that then at a regional level or sub-regional level, in our case, the San Fernando Valley region, which includes portions of LA, San Fernando, Burbank, basically you can imagine our piece of the pie is that much, is a portion probably by population or some basis.
I see.
To say we would get to spend a lesser amount of money, but the same proportions on these kinds of transportation projects. And then it's at the regional level where we would decide amongst the elected politicians if serve on these regional boards, and ultimately with a good deal of input, I imagine, from Metro, what those projects would be and what the priority would be.
So given the earlier discussion in our meeting, does it make sense that we would have to, again, not getting ahead of any city council or any movement like that, have a line item in here relative to the studies or the potential connection of the filling the gap that we have in the public transportation system in the county?
It would strike me off the top of my head that, yeah, that would be an appropriate location to do it. If I may, it may already be there at a regional level in terms of Shea Eccleston had sort of presented you the map that they had said for Measure R2 with that dashed line indicating that the east-west.
But according to that report, it said that it's stopped. I mean, there's any effort there, there's no money, there's nothing. If we go back to the wording of that, because originally when this started in the 1990s apparently, again, according to this report,
Correct.
There was an interest in getting a north-south connection, light rail.
Correct.
And then it said a couple of paragraphs after, that's dead.
Yeah, under today's funding scheme. So in a future sales tax or Measure R2, potentially it could be part of the equation.
Okay, so now we're looking at a new tax initiative in potentially 2016.
Correct.
It behooves us to get this line item in here then. So then the question is, that's why I was asking you earlier, how much time do we have to go through a process of governance to get that line item in here? That's the basic question, I guess. Are we going to bypass it? Are we going to lose the opportunity? If we're looking at something for 2016 in November?
I would say we have 18 months.
No, but it's got to be before that because I mean, I would think it would have to because it's going to go before the Metro Board. The Metro Board would then say, this is what we're going to put out for the voters to vote on.
Right.
And if we have nothing in here relative to a north-south connection, then we've lost out.
Yeah, I will say, because I know this because I'm going to be attending this meeting, the organization Move LA seems to be taking which is headed up by Denny Zane, I believe is a former Santa Monica council member.
Right.
They seem to be taking the lead in terms of crafting the legislation and building the political consensus for the map or the list of projects and the actual funding that a Measure R2 would implement.
So from many other cogs, there would be more of these.
Yeah, across the whole county. And so I know that there's a San Fernando Valley discussion and meeting that Councilmember Najarian is hosting or the keynote speaker of this Thursday. I want to say it's at Van Nuys City Hall. So Move LA has been having a series of meetings around the region with the regional leaders to try and craft what is the project list.
Is there a way that the commissioners could be made aware of these meetings that are happening? I mean, there are a lot of meetings that we could maybe prioritize and go on our own. It would be good to know about something like that because, we would then learn some other things about process. Because it sounds to me like we have a real uphill battle here, or an uphill effort to get a line item like that on here, given the time we have to work with. How do you suggest we would approach that if the commissioners concur?
Is there a calendar that we could have access to where this meeting can be scheduled? Like a Google Calendar type of a thing connected to our emails that, when you guys are, let's say, attending a meeting and there's an MTA meeting discussing these topics. It just, you input it, and then it's up to the commissioners to attend.
Yes, yes.
Probably
Let's
do
look
something
into it.
like that.
Let's look
Get
into
from
it.
the Metro, yes.
That'll be good.
Given the potential meeting that's coming up, if we could please have some information as to schedule again, I think that's what you're referring to.
Yes.
And how we can look at, since this is a transportation document that's going to be looking for dollars, it would seem like with the blessing of the city council eventually, it would seem to be that it would be something we should have on that list. I would think so if we want to make this connection sooner
Sure.
rather than later.
And one more line item that I think is overlooked here is whenever there is an accident or something on Golden State Freeway, the overflow traffic is always on San Fernando Road. Even if when you turn on the radio, KFWB and whatnot, it says alternate routes, San Fernando Road. As a result, that's flooded by outside Glendale traffic or by Golden State traffic. And there's no mention over here of how to move vehicles quicker on San Fernando Road, given the fact that, unlike Pasadena, we don't have a lot of east-west streets except Glen Oaks and San Fernando Road. We don't have the luxury of Orange Grove and California and Colorado, all that stuff in Pasadena. So what can be done engineering-wise to move the cars quicker along San Fernando Road, given the fact that there's a lot of delivery trucks over there and buses, and with the closure of Doran and Brazil, there'll be more trucks probably want to come to Glendale in order to cross the railroad tracks into where the new project area is in the LA or Atwater area, and vice versa.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Kirchian, in the past, actually, the city have received grant funds to basically improve traffic flow along San Fernando Road, basically installing fiber optic communication, coordination, signal coordination, that type of stuff. Right now, the challenge are the railroad crossing intersections. Ever since we improved we implement the safety improvements at the railroad crossing at Grandview, Flower, Broadway, and Brazil, the capacity are taken, actually, some of the capacity are actually used up for the preempting the railroad tracks, actually preempting the trains. So until we do the grade separation, actually, it would make San Fernando flow much better. If you take out the conflict, basically, it will be, with a grade separation, traffic on San Fernando Road will be actually improved a lot.
What do you mean by grade separation? You want to
Is basically, yes, actually, they will not have a grade crossing anymore.
Okay.
The train will actually be below, most likely in this case, will be below, and then there's a connection above from one side to the other side. So they will not actually be operating at a grade intersection, will not be controlled by a traffic signal.
Okay. Like at Sonora or Flower?
That's correct. Sonora, Grandview, Flower, Broadway in Brazil, Doran, those are all at grade crossings.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have just a clarification. This list is essentially crafted by city staff based on recommendations, feedback from residents, past plans. Is that the sense that I'm getting?
That's correct.
Okay, and so we are not certain of when the COG is going to be approving these list of projects or when they're expecting to receive and approve these list of projects.
It's my understanding we're going to be sending our first list to the COG through their consultant relatively soon. But whether that's the final list and I'm sure that I have to say that it can't possibly be the final list. There'll be a lot of kind of back and forth with the COG on what constitutes that final list that they want to present to the Move LA and ultimately as part of the bond measure. I will say that it's my understanding in the kind of way this works the way Measure R did. That this is really a list to develop a kind of a possible funding. It's not necessarily these specific projects, as the chairman pointed out, not necessarily these projects, but this is a way of sort of developing a kind of budget for transportation and related projects within Glendale or Burbank or the COG that might be coming out of Measure R, so that when they go to Measure R or Measure R2, so you can say Glendale or Burbank will get this amount of money out of this project because this would form the basis for saying a certain amount of money.
I hope that's the case, because I do think that, you know, some of these items I have strong concerns about, namely the Monterey Road extension over the Verdugo Wash, that I've already expressed concerns to staff, and also I'm not sure to what extent there would be a benefit to extend Orange over the freeway and what enormous cost that would come with. So it's not so much if the case is that these specific projects may not be implemented, but the funds may be there for us to use. If anything, it just kind of reflects the priorities that the city is bringing forward, and I think that given the conversation that we were just having with the previous item, that we do need to prioritize more transit options, more alternative transportation, and it seems like this list does not reflect that. So, you know, there's a thing in transportation planning called induced demand, and we saw that with the 405 freeway, where we invested $1 billion per mile to add a carpool lane, and we're not seeing any benefit from that. And now the city is finally, and Metro is looking to incorporate rapid transit down that corridor to relieve some of the congestion. So I think that, you know, I'm still very much concerned. I'm not satisfied by this list. The plans that we're basing these priorities off of is outdated. A lot has changed in the city in the last year, let alone the last 10 years. So look at a mobility plan that we haven't, you know, has been collecting dust for over 5 or 6 or maybe 10 years, I think is short-sighted on our end. So I don't know what the timeline for this is, but I hope that we're kept abreast of the situation and that we are able to chime in as a commission, because as I reiterated, and as I reiterate now, we are an advisory body, and we're supposed to be advising to council what we think they should be doing. So if we're not doing that, then I don't know why we're here. Thank you.
You said it very well. I second that comment. I think it's very, very important that we have some idea. I mean, there's priorities here of dollars that could be going to public transportation. I think we need to advise the city council that public transportation is so important in the development of our city, the further development of our city. We just need more investment in public transportation and not in more freeways, frankly. So I don't know what steps we go to next, but
I mean, well, we're free to expand the list and comment on the list and make changes to it and go to council.
Good.
We're going to become lobbyists. It's going to boil down to that. It's as simple as that.
Well, I would hope that if we were to do this, that we would do it in a unanimous direction, if we all feel that way after further discussion and study, not in a kind of a minority mode or split mode. I think that I hope we're able to see the merit of this and discuss it further. I'm open to the importance of getting that unanimity from a commission of this type relative to the city council. Would this eventually go to the council before it goes to COG?
I don't believe there's a plan right now at this moment. I don't believe so.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
I don't believe at this moment. I don't believe we plan to go to council yet. No.
But before it goes to COG, it will go to council.
That's the question on the table.
That would be a question for Mr. Galani, and probably we'll check with him.
Well, it would seem like the one recommendation that should come from this commission, since this has to do with transit, that this has to be reviewed and approved by the city council before it goes to COG. I mean, I would put a motion on the table. I don't know if we can under information, but it just seems inappropriate that if this goes to COG without the governance of the city making a comment on this, or at least approving it, I think, what are we doing?
And I do second that motion. Is it possible to
Yeah, if I may, if you could keep your motion somewhat open-ended, because we have a kind of ongoing dialogue with the COG and their consultant team that's working with the other agencies. I wouldn't want to have your motion be so strictly defined that it prevents us from getting anything in front of them.
No. I think
So-
we should keep the dialogue with COG. We need to keep it, definitely.
On the contrary, I think what you're hearing is that we don't want to make the mistake of sending a list that we're going to have to backtrack on it, and we're going to, say that we missed this, we missed that, we should have prioritized this. So it's in everybody's benefit. It's a second eye that's going to take a look at it.
I certainly understand the sort of commission's desire to sort of prioritize and see that priority be presented to the commission's priorities presented to the council for their consideration before this is finalized.
For example, unless I missed it, and I really sincerely appreciate the presentation and the information that's been provided this evening on all fronts, the notion that is already being studied by Metro, which was discussed earlier, the east-west, that's not on this list, right?
It actually is. It's
point that out to me, please. And I said, unless I missed it.
I glossed over it because you had an extensive presentation, but it's on page 4.
T14?
T14.
T14, yeah.
Would be the funding.
To North Hollywood, okay.
That would be the presentation you heard prior to this item.
Okay, thank you for helping me. If that wasn't in here, I would be really concerned. So that, and then the next question is, why does it say mid 1120 and long? Why isn't it short 110? What makes the decision to put those little X's where they are?
I think that's kind of a carryover from information we're getting back from the COG. So,
I'm sorry.
As I said, this list came from the COG and their consultants, sort of representing back to us their old Measure R and some other information they have. So they may have given us that.
Okay, so we haven't made it. The city has not made this statement yet.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
On the time frame.
No, because that's an ongoing discussion with Metro.
So the time frame is a COG time frame. That's what I'm hearing.
Some of these are ours, but I think the Pasadena, North Hollywood, or Burbank Airport Bus Rapid Transit is being driven by Metro, so it's really
T14 should be the 10 years should be in the short one. Otherwise, we're not helping public transportation.
Well, we should have a shorter one, 1 to 5 years.
Exactly. Okay, well, thank you for pointing that out to me. I missed that.
Any other questions, commissioners? No. Thank you. Great presentation. Good start. I think one of the most constructive meetings that we've had in a long time. And hopefully this momentum will carry us forward with it. With that, not taking any action on this one. As far as updates, Form 700, do you want to discuss it now? Because I know you brought it up, right?
Yes, that's just the application, which you guys annually fill out and return to me. So I just figured it would be more convenient for all
right,
here.
so let's take the next item, and then we'll discuss that now.
Item 7 is commission staff comments updates.
Okay. So I'm the only one who has it, or everybody has it? Oh, so everybody has it, and the deadline to submit the form is April
1st. However, the city clerk would like to have about a week in advance so that they can prepare it and send it. So if I can get it within the next 2-3 weeks.
Okay. And if it's ready, we can give it to you now. We can do that.
I will grab them on the way.
Okay. Excellent. Comments, updates, commissioners, questions?
I will just briefly update the commission. As you know, I am one of the commissioners that's been assigned to the Pedestrian Safety Task Force. I want to say that it is a very alive, energetic, very productive group of people, and we're accomplishing a great deal. I know, Wayne, you're there with us at the meetings. And we seem to, honors you too. I just want to give you the update that we have really kind of tackled the ease which are the education, enforcement, all of them. I'm going blank right now. Education, engineering, right? Engineering. So we're going through all of them. We have people assigned to very specific tasks, and things are getting implemented as soon as they kind of get completed. But it's a very comprehensive plan that we're putting together, and I would encourage anyone listening and the citizens to subscribe to the Glendale Connection newsletter, the e-letter that gets out, so you can be updated as to what's going on. One of the little things that got implemented, and I want to say little because it's a small little piece of the puzzle of pedestrian safety, is the implementation of the pilot flag program, which was put at 2 intersections, 2 crosswalks, one Kimlin and Chevy Chase, the other at Jackson in Colorado. And based on initial reports back, there have been some missing flags, but that's what we expected, but nothing alarming and nothing to make anyone at this point say, wow, this is very discouraging. And just the opposite, we've had businesses reach out to the city that are interested in actually sponsoring some new crosswalks as we kind of get this program and reevaluate it. So it's a very exciting thing, and I encourage everyone, if they're at that intersection and they want to cross the street, to take the flag and understand that it's for visibility. It's not to take any substitution for following the rules or obeying the laws. It's just there to help you be more visible. And having done it myself personally, and I know Council Member Najarian was there for the initial, and Council Member Devine was there as well. And we were commenting that, wow, when you hold that flag up, you sure get eye contact from cars very far away. They do notice you. So we'll see how that works out. But the task force is exceptional group of people.
Excellent.
Yep.
There was a good photograph in the paper, I noticed.
Of me carrying the flag? Boy. I've seen the picture, yeah.
You should have waved it faster, but...
Boy, if I could redo things.
Mr.
Actually, I concur with what she said, and let me repeat what the Chief Castro had said: make a contact, avoid an impact. So it's very true what he said. I mean, whenever you have those flags up, you will definitely make a contact and avoid the impact. After our last meeting, I received a phone call regarding when we raised the meter fees in Montrose. It was an interesting call that I received from a friend of mine, saying that why you raise the fees, do what Burbank does. Have it free on the streets, where limited parking, and let meter maid go out there and write tickets. And what do you think our revenues will be tickets versus meter fees in Montrose? Because apparently in Burbank it's working, it's free on San Fernando Road, and I've been there several times. I went there again after our last meeting, and sure enough, Friday night, Saturday night, the police is there right away. They won't write tickets if you're there more than 2 hours. They're marking all the wheels. And will it hurt or help businesses? That's the question.
I would have to have the parking manager respond back to you that issue.
I don't understand the question. The question is that make no time limit on parking in a business district.
Parking or 2-hour parking, or whatever it is.
And make it free.
Make it free, and compare the parking ticket revenue versus the orders that meter rate that we're collecting over there.
So trap the motorists into ticketing them by limiting parking.
Yes. We have free parking. We have free,
I don't know if there's a study that shows that. The idea honestly should be more turnover, and there's some other express parking studies that we should follow based on demand, based on pricing of parking going up and down based on demand versus ticketing. But if there's anything that staff can bring back to answer the question.
The goal is to help merchants there, have quicker turnover, and not necessarily so much for us, for the city to make money, because I think we can make money by them making money, the merchants.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll have the parking manager bring back this issue.
I never crossed my mind. A friend of mine called and said, no, yeah, I go to Burbank all the time because free parking, and you have 1 hour on San Fernando Road, and either you're in out of there during your 1 hour or you get a ticket.
But, technically, once you get the ticket, then you are there, and that wouldn't encourage the turnover.
Or park your car in a free parking. They have plenty of parking lots in Burbank as well, just like we have in Montrose. So,
but if you park there and you have a ticket, why would you want to move your car?
I know, but next time when you go there, you're parking in the structure.
Right, not to get a ticket. Let's have our parking division take a look at it and then see if there's any studies for that. On my left.
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for your patience on my.
Thank you. Staff comments, updates? Nothing from your end? So with that, thank you. Long meeting, but very productive meeting. And next item.
Item 8 is adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you. Everybody second.
We need a second.
I'll second it.